Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday evening to you all. Hope you folks are doing well out there tonight and had yourselves a fantastic Monday. And more importantly, I hope you guys are staying safe out there tonight. We have some ongoing strong to severe thunderstorms. Several severe thunderstorm warnings are ongoing right now as I speak. We'll probably have some tornado warnings by the time this video uploads. Just a lot of active weather ongoing out there right now for this evening. And this will last throughout the overnight hours all the way into tomorrow. So the way this video is going to be sectioned out, of course, you know we're here to talk about the severe weather that's going to be happening over the next basically 48 hours. We're going to section this out pretty well. We're going to talk about what's going to happen between now and tomorrow morning. We'll have that kind of sectioned out for you folks because you guys know I don't go live. I know there's a lot of people tuning into the storm chasers that are going live out there in the field, which I don't blame you one bit. It's always pretty crazy to watch, and those guys do an awesome job keeping people aware of what's going on with real-time observations. And of course, there's people like Ryan Hall and many others that are going live with the live feeds off the radar and keeping people alert of what's to come. What we do on this channel is we stay ahead in the future. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about what could happen between now and the overnight hours, all the way into tomorrow morning, and then we're going to have a separate segment for what's going to happen potentially for tomorrow, which, guys, the threat of severe weather for tomorrow has significantly increased. We had a very dramatic change from the Storm Prediction Center, and we now have a tornado-driven moderate risk in areas of the Ohio Valley. But a very large area of real estate is going to be having a threat of severe weather for tomorrow. So we're going to spend a lot of time on that. And then, even though the thumbnail says otherwise, we are going to have a segment for you folks that are being threatened by a lot of heavy snow. So we're going to speak on that also. Not going to leave you folks hanging whatsoever. You guys know I like talking about snow anyway. So we're going to get very detailed. We're going to just take our time in this video. I'm going to try to slow it down, even though I'm already talking 100 miles per hour right now. And just take our time through this video. Please utilize those timestamps. They're there to help you folks out. I don't blame you one bit if you don't have time to watch a video that's 45 minutes long on the weather. But I like to explain why this happens, why it doesn't. That's just what I do on this channel. So if you're interested in the nerdy science part of it, this channel is certainly for you. So we're going to discuss that. So with that being said, if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling. So all these areas in red that you're seeing, whether it's like a square, a rectangle, polygon, or something in between, those are severe thunderstorm warnings. As of right at this moment, no tornado warnings. But that'll change over the next hour or so, most likely, especially as we get into this evening, overnight hours, as a low-level jet begins to ramp up, and we'll talk about all of that. So a lot of weather ongoing right now, storms capable of producing all hazards, but large hail is the biggest threat as of right at this moment. We do have some rain up here north of this boundary that's setting up across the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. And it says we're mixing with some snow up here based off the radar. Not sure if this is actually falling as snow. You guys will have to let me know up here in Wisconsin. A little bit of energy up here in Maine. But all this energy will ooze eastward into tomorrow, and we will have a very dynamic setup for sure. So watches, warnings, and advisories. These areas in yellow, those are tornado watches. We actually have 3 separate tornado watch areas right now, I believe. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Severe thunderstorm watches in this pink color right in here. This pink color is red flag warnings. Won't really speak much on that. Flood watches are up, folks. I know I haven't spoke much on this threat, but guys, don't completely ignore the risk of flash flooding, because some of these areas have already been hit by multiple rounds of storms, will continue to get hit by multiple rounds of storms over the next like 24 to 36 hours. And then check out the teal colors up here. Winter storm watch is up. This system is actually, the risk of heavy snow has actually increased for the Great Lakes region, as it looks like this lake's low is going to be stronger, which is actually what's driving a more significant severe weather threat than what we previously thought. Still have a significant late season winter storm on the way for the interior Northeast also. We'll speak on this also. So let's get rocking and rolling. So let's talk about the rest of the night. As of right now, let's see if any of this has changed, and it hasn't. We have a moderate risk. This was upgraded earlier this morning, and this is driven off large hail. This isn't driven off tornadoes, but they upgraded to a hail-driven moderate risk. So enhanced risk continues from North Texas all the way through, Arkansas, all the way up into areas of the Midwest, all the way over to Cincinnati, Ohio, includes Louisville, the southern half of Indiana and Illinois. And I'm telling you, it's going to get pretty rocky in Missouri over the next several hours. The tornado risk in the yellow, that's a 10% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. This is right now between the overnight hours all the way to tomorrow morning. And then we also have in the black outline region with the black dashes going in between it, that is a 10% risk also of a significant tornado, a strong tornado, EF2 or higher. And then, of course, the brown is a 5% risk of tornado. Wind threat, it's pretty significant, guys. This entire red area, 30% chance of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And then in the black outline region right in here, that's a threat of significant winds. Winds exceeding 65 miles per hour or higher. Okay? And then the hail threat. This is what's going on right at this moment. There is a 45% chance in this pink color right in here. Some people might call this purple, but I would call it pink. In this pink color right here, 45% chance of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger, 30% chance of that in the red, and then a 15% risk of it in the yellow. Okay, but there's also in this entire black outline region. I know I keep reiterating myself with this, guys, but I think it's important to re-explain this to new viewers that aren't familiar with the outlooks from the Storm Prediction Center. But there's a 10% risk, not added on to this 30 and 45 to make it like 40 and 55. Okay, this is its own thing, but you got a 10% risk of significant hail, which is considered 2 inch in diameter or larger in this entire region. Okay, so let's keep this going. All right, so we already know we got nasty weather in North Texas and areas of kind of central and western Oklahoma, even some storms ongoing already up here in Missouri and Kansas. But as we continue to move into the evening hours, if confused about the time at all, because I do forget, I mentioned so many places and crammed in one video that I missed some states, I missed some time frames. But this is in Eastern time, so you'll have to back this up 1 hour. So this is technically 8 p.m. here in the next, couple hours in this area. Really bad storms continue to march through the eastern half of Oklahoma. Tulsa in here, Oklahoma City. Looks like it's about done in Oklahoma City. But you keep these going. A couple things are going on. Nasty weather in southeastern Kansas. Some very strong to severe storms just north of Springfield, maybe on top of Springfield. Joplin experienced some bad weather all the way up to Columbia, Missouri. So the weather starts to really get bad in this region. Then look at these individual storms. We cannot downplay the tornado risk even in this area. You know, a lot of people were discussing this earlier this morning. With these individual storms down here, with this low-level jet that's basically building into this region as these storms are kind of cruising this way. Low-level jet's really ramping up down here. This is going to feed into any storms that get going right into here this evening. And we could have an increasing tornado threat down here from Dallas-Fort Worth to Texarkana. Mary, I know you live in northeast Texas. Beware of these storms. Southeastern Oklahoma into western Arkansas. This develops into more of a nocturnal thing, meaning that the sun's already set. It's nighttime outside. We got to watch for these storms. Fort Smith, Fayetteville, southeastern Oklahoma. Please be aware of these storms. And even as we're getting into about 1 to 2 a.m., storms are rumbling through northwestern Arkansas. And then look at all these storms up here in Missouri. I want to speak more on Missouri here in a second. I'm not trying to deliberately leave you guys hanging. I got you guys covered. Trust me. And then we start to get into the wee hours of the morning and all the way into tomorrow morning. Things are much calmer. But before we get to the calm conditions, significant tornado parameter around right now, not super high. But watch as these numbers increase as we get into the evening hours. It's around 7 p.m. here in the next hour or so. And then we start to get to about 9 p.m. Significant tornado parameter. 13, 15, 8s, 9s, 10s. And if you're not familiar with this, guys, just think of it like this. The higher the numbers you see on your screen, the better the ingredients for tornadoes. It doesn't mean if you see a 10, there's a 10 out of 10 chance of seeing a tornado, which means 100% chance. Just think of this as the higher the numbers, the better the ingredients in the atmosphere for tornadoes. And like I said, it spikes in southeastern Oklahoma, northeastern Texas, into Arkansas. Right as the sun's beginning to set, starting to lay the kids down to bed, starting to mellow down for the evening, this is when the tornado threat really begins to ramp up. Please take this serious, folks. Really, really do. I'm telling you. And the reason that this ramps up is this. This is what we call the low-level jet. Winds about a mile above our heads. And you notice right now, you got a pretty decent low-level flow already over Arkansas, not much over eastern Oklahoma, but look at this low-level jet starting to ramp up to the south. Well, we don't really have any storms, but as we continue to move this forward here, we start to get later into the evening, and then we start to get this 30 to 40 knot low-level jet right over Arkansas. Storms are starting to move into this region right here. Look at this 30 to 40 knot low-level jet. That is definitely a supporting factor for tornadoes with already ongoing storms in this region. It really begins to increase even more as we get into later in the afternoon. Later tonight. But, at this point, we're probably starting to lose probably any kind of storms out here. There's probably not many storms left, but you can see what happens. The low-level jet really increases in this region, and that is why the tornado threat will increase over the next few hours, I would say, in this area. And then in response, the updraft Felicity swath, here it comes. Watch how it starts to show up big time over this area right here in southeastern Oklahoma, northeastern Texas, all the way into Arkansas into the overnight hours. Look at that. Really showing some highlight areas. And this is where just this one particular run of the HRRR model likes the idea of a lot of rotation with these storms. There's going to be a lot of broad rotation. There already probably is out there right now. But this is really going to get intense later this evening in this area. I think there'll be an increasing tornado threat right in here. Okay, let's move a little bit further up the road. Okay, we already have some weather ongoing right now, but as we start to get into about 9 p.m., look at all these nasty storms moving into southwestern, western Missouri. We will have a threat of damaging winds, large hail, and even a tornado risk along these storms in central Illinois, central Indiana, especially along this boundary. Once they get north of the boundary up here in this region, then, they lose the severity level to them. But this is south of the boundary. And these storms right in here will be capable of producing tornadoes, especially as we start to get to late in the evening, around midnight. This is around midnight tonight. The storm structure does not look very supportive of tornadic storms, but that doesn't mean there's not going to be embedded rotation with some of these storms in southern Missouri, the Ozarks of Arkansas and southern Missouri. These storms start to get pretty intense in the southern half of Illinois. They continue for Indiana, and this is starting to get pretty late tonight, guys. And tornado threat is likely just there most of the late evening into the overnight hours in St. Louis. Might drop off after we get into the wee hours of the morning. But this is what the radar could look like around 2 a.m. Nasty storms south of St. Louis starting to inch into the Boot Hill, Missouri, southern Illinois, Evansville starting to really get close to some really bad weather. And then we wake up tomorrow morning, and then that starts day 2, our Tuesday of severe weather. And I think more stable conditions with more elevated moisture kind of moves in after this. But, the storm structure does not look as alarming as it does to the south. But I'm telling you guys, still a threat of tornadoes. And there is right now. But as we start to get into about here in the next couple hours, look at how the significant tornado perimeter begins to rise here in southern Missouri. And then we start to get into later in the evening. But you see there's a sharp drop off right in here. Where there's ingredients supportive of tornadoes down here, and then there's just none right up here. So I think that's because the low-level jet really ramps up into here, and there's just more stable air up here. So, and, we'll look at that low-level jet as it kind of climbs into this region into later in this evening, and there it is, spiking to that 35, 40 knot low-level jet begins to rise into southern Missouri and to southern Illinois. But, there's not much favorable kinematics at all right up into here. But, man, watch out down here. Any storms that can kind of break off from the main area of convection up into here and kind of get going in like southern, southeastern Missouri, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, even western Kentucky, western Tennessee. Even northeastern Arkansas, they will have the capability of producing a tornado. So, can't ignore that, even though the severe weather threat isn't as high once you start to move a little bit further east, at least into the overnight hours. But, taking a look at that updraft Felicity swath, here it is. But, you see these areas down here in Arkansas. Got to watch these regions right in here. Okay, this takes us all the way into Tuesday morning, and it really likes the idea going right through the heart of Missouri, maybe right along this boundary, is right where the tornado threat could be the worst. And there is a tornado watch in these areas right in here. I think one of the tornado watches says a couple strong tornadoes are possible, meaning EF2 or higher, which that's when it starts to get into the critical criteria of damage for sure. So, yeah, guys, let's go on and move into Tuesday. So stay safe tonight for you folks. who are dealing with the nasty weather right now. But let's go on and move into Tuesday. A broad look at this. We're going to zoom into some of these graphics that are really going to help you folks out. But this is the broad look. We have a moderate risk right here. Enhanced risk goes from Cleveland all the way to Birmingham, Alabama, all the way back, west of Nashville, all the way to the western spine of the Appalachian Mountains. There's a slight risk that goes all the way from southern Ontario, just about all the way to the Gulf coastline. So, this is actually extended eastward into Charlotte now. We'll have an overnight severe weather threat into Charlotte to Columbia, Greenville, Spartanburg, Atlanta, Roanoke. So, huge threats. So, let's really zoom into certain areas. And for my folks to the south of this, I'm going to show you guys too. But I want to show you these cool graphics from the Storm Prediction Center. Okay, moderate risk. Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati, Athens, Ohio, almost to Akron. Enhanced risk, almost up to Cleveland, does include Akron. Toledo, you're in the slight risk. Indianapolis, right on the border of the slight enhanced risk. Okay, these are some big cities. Cincinnati, up to Columbus. Man, big risk. And what is this driven off of? Well, let's go back to this. This is the tornado outlook. And same thing like I explained if you tune in the beginning of the video. This red area, that's a 15% risk of seeing a tornado within 25 miles in a given location in those cities you see here that are in the red. And then in the yellow, that's a 10% risk of a tornado within 25 miles of any given location in the yellow. But then, you look at the hatched risk also. You see the black outlined area with the black dashes going in between it. That is also a 10% risk of seeing a significant tornado, which is an EF2 or higher, folks. It's a big deal. And then we look at the wind outlook. Okay, closer look at this. All right, the red area, 30% chance of seeing winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. But that black outline region, that is a 10% risk of seeing winds exceeding 65 miles per hour. I keep wanting to almost say knots, but of seeing winds exceeding around 65 miles per hour or higher. Actually, I believe it's more. I believe it's 70 to 75 miles per hour. Technically, it's 65 knots or higher is the correct way to say this. So, this is a big threat of severe weather, guys. And if we kind of back it up and look at the hail threat, what about the hail threat? That is a 30% risk of seeing hail. And let's make sure we're on the right outlook because it's getting kind of mixed up here. That is a 30% risk of seeing hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. And then the black outlined area, that is a 10% risk of seeing hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger within 25 miles in a given location. And then the yellow is a 15% risk of that same criteria. Okay, so this is a big threat, guys. And if we continue to move forward and we look to the south of this covers a lot more area. All right, we have an enhanced risk that goes right through Kentucky, all the way through the heart of Tennessee, all the way to northern Alabama, includes northwestern sections of Georgia, includes a very small section of northeastern Mississippi. Slight risk goes all the way down here to the Gulf coastline, includes all these cities you see. Pulled up this because it does a really great job of showing all these cities just to help you folks out. And then we look at the tornado risk. All right. 10% risk of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of a given location. Includes Frankfort, Lexington, Bowling Green, Nashville, Knoxville, Huntsville, almost down to Birmingham, folks. And then in the black outline region, that's a 10% risk to see a significant tornado, EF2 or higher. But check out the 5% risk of a tornado. It goes all the way down to the Gulf Coast, all the way to Charlotte, almost Columbia, includes Atlanta. So, yeah, big threat. And then we look at the wind outlook. We have in the red a 30% risk of seeing winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. In this black outline region with the black dashes going in between it, that's winds, a 10% risk of winds exceeding 65 knots or higher, which is around 70 to 75 miles per hour. So big threat of winds. And then the hail risk, 30% risk of seeing hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger in this red extension region, which is a hatch risk up here in northern Kentucky. So big day of severe weather. Now, what's driving this, folks? And I understand, a lot of people aren't interested in the ingredients, but, this is where we'll kind of nerd out with you folks for a couple minutes and explain what's driving such a significant threat of severe weather tomorrow. What we'll take a look at first is low-level moisture, what we call dew points. These aren't temperatures, these are dew points. So once you get dew points above 60 degrees, that becomes much more supportive for an ingredient for severe weather. So we continue to move forward, and we get into about midday tomorrow. That's about 1 to 2 p.m. actually. These are dew points, guys, in the mid to upper 60s into Indiana, low 60s in Ohio. But you see this dry air kind of moving in fast. That's dry air aloft. This helps aid in lapse rates, dry and cold air aloft, basically kind of uppercutting the atmosphere in this region. This creates supportive, what we call lapse rates for this system. And I just think of that as another ingredient that supports severe weather, especially tornadoes. So this is driven off a surface low up here to the north that's bringing in all this ripe low-level moisture right here in this region, this plume of very humid air tomorrow afternoon right here into the Ohio Valley. And then, of course, you see it all the way through the mid-south and the deep south down here. Dew points well into the 60s, even some pockets of some low 70s. So you check that off, right? Plenty of low-level moisture, and it continues all the way into tomorrow evening. Next thing you look at is CAPE levels in response to those higher levels of moisture. And I mean, we take it all the way, let's just go on and keep moving here. We go all the way to about tomorrow afternoon. Sometime tomorrow afternoon, 2 to 4 o'clock. CAPE levels rising over 2,000 joules per kilogram mixed layer CAPE into Indiana. And then look how they begin to spike in Ohio. And you don't even need 2,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE in this setup. 1,000 joules per kilogram will help, but once you start to get the higher end CAPE, you have a threat of significant tornadoes. And that's why you do have a threat of to significant tornadoes in this area. CAPE levels reaching 1,500, almost 2,000 joules per kilogram, getting into, areas of Ohio. High-end environment for tornadic activity. And this continues, folks, and you see the CAPE that's down here into Kentucky and this slither of storm fuel all the way down here in Tennessee, all the way down here in Alabama. Not a lot down there, but there's still enough to work with. And then we start to get all the way into late tomorrow evening, and we still have fuel in the atmosphere. And then one of the craziest things to look at with this is kinematics. This is that low-level flow, that low-level jet. Now, if you look at the wind barbs right into here, you see how they're kind of spinning right into here? That is our surface low. So when we keep this going in motion, we'll take it all the way to about lunchtime. Look at this low-level jet in response to this surface low spinning around here, really getting strong. These are winds about a mile above our heads as we are at the surface. So you have this over 40 to almost 50 knot low-level jet really raging up through here, through the mid-south, the Tennessee Valley, all the way up into the mid-south. All the way up into the Ohio Valley. And then watch what happens here. Here's that surface low deepening. Look at this 50 to 60 knot low-level jet ramping up over Indiana and then moving and even strengthening furthermore. It kind of maintains itself, but a 50 to 60 knot low-level jet with rotating severe, just bad storms, underlapping all this high-end kinematic energy right into here. I mean, this is your classic. It's classic of a look as a low-level jet right over this region. There's no displacement from this kinematic. I'm not trying to freak anybody out. I mean, this low-level jet is right on top of these severe storms, right on top. It's basically kind of overlapping a thermodynamic environment that we just discussed, supportive for some very bad weather tomorrow and an outbreak of severe storms. And it's down here too, folks. I mean, you got a low-level jet that's supportive of severe weather down here too. Okay, but this is that pocket of really dangerous weather. And this continues all the way into the evening hours where you have this, just in general, anywhere from 50 to 60 knot low-level jet running right through the Ohio Valley, and just a dangerous setup right in here. It really is, folks. So, yeah, I mean, so let's just take a look at what the radar could look like and slow it down a little bit here. Tuesday morning, we're already going to have morning convection ongoing in Ohio, northern Kentucky, Indiana. There is a fail mode with this, which would be a good fail mode. Fail mode as in, does some of the storms, the rain kind of linger around for a long time in the Ohio Valley and doesn't allow for the atmosphere to really destabilize in time for all these higher end ingredients to build in? The latest HRRR model says definitely not, that you're not going to have this happen. You have this clearing that begins to develop around mid to late mornings, around 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. There's not a whole lot going on in Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee anymore. And I'm going to have you guys a section a little bit further south. So if you're in Tennessee, Alabama, etc., and you're wondering, I can't see my area, Mitch, I got you covered. Just definitely jump ahead if you want to, and I have that sectioned out for you folks. But we start to get into about midday. We're already starting to get some storms around the border of Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky, right down here. Cincinnati, just south. But watch what happens. There's a couple things going on. You got these storms already getting going in central Kentucky. These could be producing all hazards. A tornado threat, low-level jets already ramping through here. And look at this nasty cell in southern Ohio. This cell is pretty wild on the latest long-range H-triple-R model. We'll talk about this. This thing literally survives over the Appalachian Mountains and makes it all the way into the mid-Atlantic, all the way into the Atlantic Ocean, basically. It's pretty wild stuff. I doubt that's going to be exactly what happens, but we could have some long-track supercells tomorrow. So we got to watch out all these convection. This is around 3 p.m. I mean, Indianapolis right into here. Nasty storms north of Indianapolis, but I do think there'll be a boundary here separating high-end ingredients for severe weather and more stable environment a little bit further north. So watch out all these storms. Look at this cell right here, kind of just outside of the Toledo region. Look at these storms right here near Columbus, Cleveland up into here. But these are the storms that I'm the most concerned about right in here that begin to develop around the kind of Indianapolis up to Fort Wayne region, or just east, right? These are the storms that will be fueled off of high-end low-level jets that will be really driving the severe weather threats big time. All these will probably be semi-discrete to discrete supercells that will have the capability of producing all hazards, guys. All hazards. These storms will be packing a punch in eastern Kentucky too. And but these are the ones I'm the most worried about. This is around 7 p.m. saying these storms are heading right into, like, coming really close to Frankfort, Lexington, Cincinnati, Dayton, knock on the doorstep of Columbus, and there they are. I mean, and the sun's starting to set. It's around 8 p.m. These storms are just rumbling through the entire state of Ohio. It's around 9 p.m. right to the heart of Ohio. Might start to lose some steam. Hopefully they do very quickly, and then this is done. Check out the snow on the cold side of this. It tells you that this is a very dynamic storm system when you got snow flying around the cold side. Cold side not too far away at all. Okay, so that's a look at the storm structure. What about a significant tornado parameter? Now, your eyes are going to get very big if you live in this area in a bad way. But Tuesday morning, check out how this significant tornado parameter really begins to spike as it gets into southern Illinois, southern Indiana, Kentucky. And then we start to get into Tuesday afternoon, 3 or 4 p.m. Significant tornado parameter begins to spike to like 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s. And like I said, I'll reiterate this again. This doesn't mean that you're going to have a 10 out of 10 chance of a tornado. Just think of this as the higher the number you see on your screen, the higher the ingredients for tornadoes. Okay? So, I mean, look up here in northern Kentucky. Don't ignore this down to Tennessee and Kentucky either. Look at this one cell is trying to fire off a high-end tornado parameter right in here. And then look how it really begins to spike here in eastern Indiana, western Ohio, southern Ohio. And man, around 6 to 7 p.m., these storms look to be the worst right into here, right along the border of Ohio and Indiana, all the way into northern Kentucky, guys. It does not look like a good play tomorrow. Let's hope that this fails, but man, it just looks very alarming to me. And you know, guys, I don't scream at you guys like some of these other videos. I don't yell. I try to break this down in the most calm way I can, but this really looks significant tomorrow. It really does. Ohio and the Ohio Valley has already been hit very hard. Seems like severe weather has really just skipped the deep south this year. But guys, this is the updraft Felicity swath. Okay? This is what happens between now and tomorrow morning. Any additional swaths you see come up, this is added on. Now it's kind of blended in, so it's very hard to tell. But look at this one cell I just told you about. Man, it really wants a really nasty supercell here, right where kind of southern Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia meet, and then it kind of flies off into West Virginia. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But I mean, look at this one right up into here. So it really gets high end, guys. I mean, this is all blending in. We'll be able to take a better look at this tomorrow morning after we're done with the overnight convection. But pretty bad. Deep south. This includes Tennessee. So I think more so down here, you'll have one sweeping line of storms. You really won't have multiple opportunities for nasty weather. As we get to about midday, it's around 1 p.m. or so, storms fire up, I would say, well east of Memphis. Look at this convection firing up from Louisiana through Mississippi through Tennessee. And then as we get into 3 to 4 p.m., these storms probably start to get to strong to severe limits from northeastern Louisiana all the way through Jackson, maybe Tupelo, all the way up into Nashville. These storms, the further north you get, the higher the potential for tornadoes. The further north you climb up this line of storms, the higher potential for tornadoes. So Florence, Huntsville, you guys have a risk of tornadoes. Even down in Mississippi, you got to watch out. But these storms start to head towards the Cumberland Plateau, probably around 4, 5, 6, 7 p.m. They start to hit you guys. But I do think there's only going to be, I would say, more so a narrow window of where these storms will be the most intense. And I would say it's sometime later tomorrow afternoon, early evening. And I do think they'll start to lose some steam a little bit on this. We'll see what happens. But it looks like the storms kind of try to refire up down here in the southern half of Alabama around 9 to 10 p.m. Hattiesburg over to Montgomery to, Birmingham. These storms look to be rumbling through the night tomorrow night and really packing a punch all the way through Dothan, Columbus, Georgia, affecting Atlanta at this point into the overnight hours tomorrow night, and then we're done with it. Start to affect the panhandle of Florida. So the significant tornado parameter, obviously not as high, but it does spike tomorrow afternoon. Nashville, 3s, 4s, and 5s around the area. Got this area near Florence and Huntsville, Alabama, and then it tries to get up into the Cumberland Plateau, and then it tries to respike down here. Southern Mississippi, southern Alabama. We'll see what happens with that. And then it heads on out. Okay, and then we look at the updraft velocity swath for this and see what it looks like. What is it symbolizing? But, guys, it does show some areas to watch out for. It shows some rotation with some of these storms on this one run of the HRRR model. So please be aware of this for sure. But we look at the mid-Atlantic, and, some nasty weather is possible. Waking up to more just a shield of heavy rain, some storms in northern West Virginia, southwestern PA. Pretty wild stuff. We could have strong to severe storms in West Virginia tomorrow, but then turn around and get a pretty stout late season northwest snow event as we get later into our Tuesday and our Wednesday. But there's that clearing in the mid-Atlantic, and then there's that nasty lone supercell showing up on the HRRR model. Look how this thing goes from southern Ohio through the heart of West Virginia, makes it all the way to the foothills of Virginia, goes right through Charlottesville. I'm not saying this is exactly what's going to happen, but I do bet on 1 or 2 really strong to severe storms rumbling through this region. And this run of the HRRR model shows, a really powerful storm system, a very powerful storm right through northern Virginia, making it all the way to the Delmarva area. So, and then we got more storms to follow behind that tomorrow evening into the overnight hours, and we have to watch. And then, of course, we look at the updraft velocity swath. It really latches onto that storm. It's wild. It really likes the idea of this storm right here. But guys, this will probably change on the next long range model, HRRR model, and probably show something totally different. But this had people cracking up today just because, the model really latched onto this one storm. But let's hope this doesn't happen, because if something like that was to happen, we would have to watch out for, a tornadic producing supercell right over the Appalachian Mountains, right through West Virginia. But it's kind of an unrealistic scenario here. And then I want to take a look at my folks here in the Carolinas. Don't want to ignore you guys. This is where I live. So, a lot of viewers from this area. And, you do have the risk of severe weather tomorrow. But, guys, this is really driven off what's going to happen tomorrow night. And as this energy tries to make it over the southern Apps tomorrow evening, we start to get into the wee hours of the morning. This is well after midnight tomorrow night. And we do have to watch these storms right in here into Georgia, upstate of South Carolina, into Piedmont of North Carolina. They will try to refire up Wednesday morning. And, we do have a threat of some gusty winds, even a brief tornado with some of these storms. And they will try to respike and really get going late Wednesday morning, right after they head off into the Atlantic Ocean. So I do want to watch for some strong to severe storms along the Carolina coastline, even Virginia, even the Delmarva area as we're getting into Wednesday, especially up here in Virginia and Delmarva, as the energy hasn't fully made its way through yet. So, all right, we're done with that. Let's talk about the snow side very briefly. Right now, looks like there's maybe some rain-snow mix, but this really cranks up tomorrow morning. And look at this. We're getting into tomorrow midday. Look at this heavy snow. This is tomorrow afternoon. It's trying to say heavy rain's going to switch to heavy snow around Rockford up to Milwaukee, Green Bay, Madison, Janesville. I mean, this entire section of central and eastern Wisconsin. Look at the rain switching to snow in northern lower Michigan. And guys, if it does do what the HRRR model is showing, this would be heavy, clumpy, cotton ball-like snow falling. Green Bay, you're right in the middle of it tomorrow evening. I mean, it's snowing like crazy, like it's January. And it just continues to spin around all the way into, midday Wednesday. I mean, it's snowing in northern Illinois still. Snow trying to wrap all the way back into eastern Iowa. Snowing like crazy up here in the UP and Michigan Wednesday morning into Wednesday midday. And this is as far out as it goes. And it's still going to be snowing. So this is an area right here where the threat of snow is actually increased. And several inches of snow now expected. This is a broad look. Now look how much snow they're calling for the UP and Michigan. So this has turned to a much more significant threat. And we just, take a look at these individual areas. Marquette, 5 to 11 inches of snow. Republic, 6 to 13. Newberry, might as well just walk outside to try to figure it out because it's a tough one, 2 to 7. This had me cracking up when I pulled up this graphic. Gaylord, Michigan, 1 to 8 inches of snow. National Weather Service down there just basically saying, hey, man, you just got to have to walk outside and figure it out because we'd have no idea. And this is really a dynamic-driven storm, meaning it really goes off the rates. How heavy is the precipitation? So we move a little bit further south, Green Bay, 5 to 12 inches of snow. Sturgeon Bay, 4 to 12. Sister Bay, 4 to 11. Oshkosh, 5 to 12. Appleton, 6 to 12. A little bit further south, Milwaukee, anywhere from 0 to 3 inches. Janesville, 2 to 5. So we'll pull up some more graphics near the Chicago area probably in the morning. But, this is the graphic out of lower Michigan, 4 to 11 inches off this one, and Gaylord. But, it's going for Mayo, 2 to 9. Traverse City, I don't know. You could get nothing. You could get half a foot of snow. So, I don't know. It just cracks me up. But Wednesday morning, let's start this off with the Northeast. This really begins to crank up. I would say this is trending a little bit warmer for the Northeast, a little bit more amped up. Freezing rain could be a big deal in the higher elevations of the Green and White Mountains, the Berkshires, Catskills, the Adirondacks. I would say that the snow has kind of went down a little bit, but still, if you live way deep in the interior Northeast, getting into Thursday morning, a raging snowstorm in the interior Northeast, and could have some more energy that really rejuices this as we're getting into our Friday. And yeah, guys, we'll be able to talk a little bit more specifically on this here in the coming day or so. Just severe weather is really clogging up the feed right now and rightfully so. But this is already, between now and just Thursday morning, guys, they're already going for a lot of snow. Already going for just in general 8 to 12 inches of snow in the higher elevations. But there could be some snow with some ice with this too, folks. So we got to watch out. And then we look at the blend of all models with snow with this entire event, guys. And, still going for a lot in some of these areas. Some of this has dropped off a little bit. But this is going to be a whopper of a winter storm for the interior Northeast. And then not to leave my folks down here in the Southern Alps hanging. Big snow event for West Virginia and Western Maryland. Guys, this is going to be an 8 to 12 inch snowfall event for West Virginia. I would think several inches of snow could be possible in the areas like 45 to 5,000 feet up in the air, even in North Carolina and Tennessee. So, out of breath, guys. That's all I got. God bless all y'all. Stay safe out there tonight, and I'll have you covered again tomorrow morning.